Live from Television Hill, this is WJZ News at 11.
Mother charged. Prosecutors take action against the driver of a vehicle involved in a deadly crash.
The new details released about the wreck that claimed the lives of 6 people. Hello, everyone. I'm Vic Carter.
And I'm Mary Bubala. 5 of these victims were children, 2 of whom belonged to the driver.
Prosecutors say the woman was under the influence of alcohol at the time of the crash in Prince George's County.
And WJZ is live. Kelsey Kushner has the new developments for us. Kelsey?
Well, Mary, the state's attorney says Dominique Taylor was indicted on 12 counts, including vehicular homicide and vehicular manslaughter, because she was driving with a blood alcohol level twice the legal limit. It was a horrific scene back in early February. 6 people, including 5 children, killed after police say this Chrysler Pacifica veered off Crane Highway in Bowie, hit several trees and spun out. Investigators say none of the children were wearing seatbelts and were ejected. Tuesday, the driver, 32-year-old Dominique Taylor, was indicted on 12 counts, 6 for vehicular homicide and 6 for vehicular manslaughter.
We know that no one, especially in these types of cases, intends to kill anyone. But when you make decisions on the roadway that are dangerous decisions and these type of tragedies result, our office has no choice but to seek justice.
Prince George's County State's Attorney Aisha Braveboy says Taylor was driving with a blood alcohol level twice the legal limit. The victims identified as 6-year-old Raquel Ricks, 14-year-old Zion Beard, and 15-year-old Damari Harold, and Taylor's own 2 children, 5-year-old Paris Dixon and 8-year-old London Dixon. Prosecutors say Taylor is related to the other 3 children. Another passenger, 23-year-old Cornell Simon, who prosecutors say was a friend of Taylor's, was later pronounced dead after being taken off life support 2 weeks after the crash. Family and friends remember the children at a funeral.
I remember a time we was going out to feed the homeless, and they little girls, and they was up there pitching, what can I put in this? I want to do this, I want to help. And all the only 2 little girls that got up early in the morning to go out to feed the homeless.
At the time, police reported Taylor was wearing a seatbelt. Now she's facing up to 60 years behind bars.
Losing your children is tough. It's tough for every single parent. We have several fathers involved in this. We have at least 2 mothers, or 3 mothers really, who lost their children. And so it's very, very tragic. But even within all that tragedy, we have to do our job. We have to seek justice. We have to hold individuals who are at fault accountable.
And State Attorney Braveboy did point out that Taylor does have the presumption of innocence, and investigators are still working to figure out why she veered off the road. Reporting live in Baltimore City, Kelsey Kushner for WJZ.
New at 11, a Baltimore police cruiser is hit during a pursuit through the city tonight. Investigators say it happened in North Baltimore near the intersection of Keswick Road and University Parkway. Police say the pursuit began around 8 this evening on Edmonton Avenue in southwest Baltimore. They say a police cruiser was hit, but the officer was not hurt. Police tell us no arrests have been made. A manhunt continues tonight in Baltimore for an inmate who police say jumped out of a van. Dewan Lee was last seen near Mason and Forest Streets downtown. Police say the 23-year-old was headed to a state occupational skills training center when he somehow managed to escape from the van. He was serving time for burglary. Lee was wearing a gray jumpsuit and brown boots. If you see him, you're asked to call police.
It was an emotional day in a Baltimore County courtroom. Jurors watched Officer Amy Caprio's final moments when prosecutors played her body cam video. As WJZ investigator Mike Halgren reports, it's crucial evidence in the trial of a teenager facing life in prison for Caprio's murder.
The prosecution called the stolen Jeep Dante Harris drove into Officer Amy Caprio a 4,000-pound murder weapon. Then showed the jury Officer Caprio's body camera video never before seen in public, which they say shows her murder happen. In that video, Officer Caprio follows the Jeep to a cul-de-sac in her police cruiser. The Jeep turns around and ends up facing her. Caprio gets out with her weapon pointed at the Jeep. She yells to Harris 8 separate times to get out of the vehicle. The Jeep suddenly comes toward her and hits her. Officer Caprio fires 1 shot at the Jeep before being struck. Everything is quick. The video is 36 seconds long. Prosecutor Zarena Sita told the jury this defendant stole Officer Caprio's life from her. The teenager's defense team calls it an accident.
He's not on trial for being a fallen angel. He's on trial for first-degree murder, and I don't think the state can meet its burden. I don't think the state can meet its burden at all.
Caprio was responding to a report of a suspicious vehicle after a series of robberies in Perry Hall last May. Police say Harris was the lookout while his 3 friends were breaking into homes. Harris's attorneys claim Officer Caprio was aggressive and question why she pulled out her service weapon. They claim the Jeep's windows were rolled up and music was playing, but their client could not hear the officer's commands.
You're talking about the panicked reaction of a 16-year-old with a gun pointed in his face.
Jurors also heard from the woman who initially called 911 to report the robbery of her neighbor's home. She watched Officer Caprio get hit and told the jury, "I noticed there was blood coming from her head. There were tire tracks on her legs. I can't get her face out of my head." Officer Caprio's final words alive were telling Dante Harris to get out of that vehicle. At the Circuit Courthouse in Towson, Mike Helgren, WJZ.
Faulty equipment is likely the cause of a deadly explosion at a Silver Spring apartment complex that happened nearly 3 years ago. That's according to a report released today by the NTSB. Federal investigators believe a faulty regulator left unconnected to event most likely caused the blast at Flower Branch Apartments. 7 people were killed, more than a dozen others were injured. Washington Gas is the utility company responsible for maintaining the vents. It has disputed the NTSB's findings. The disturbance at a carnival in Baltimore County that led to the arrests of more than 24 juveniles turned into a battle over who's to blame. County and city leaders are now going back and forth. Devin Bartolotta has reaction today from Baltimore's acting mayor.
They just blame the city for everything.
Acting Mayor Jack Young says council members in Baltimore County shouldn't be so quick to point fingers at the city for weekend chaos at East Point Mall.
We don't condone those kind of things, but I don't know who the kids were. Kids are kids, and they're from everywhere. But you know, Baltimore City kids always get the bad rap.
The blame game started Monday when Baltimore County Councilman Todd Crandall posted on Facebook the community is, quote, under siege by people who do not live or work here and have no idea how to act in a civil society. All of the work being done to strengthen and improve our community is being undermined by city residents. The reality is, due to confidentiality laws, only police and now the courts know where home is for the 26 kids arrested outside East Point Mall Sunday night. Police tell WJZ the carnival was shut down for overcrowding and the parking lot full of kids and teenagers erupted in multiple fistfights. It's the second incident like this one in just a month, and the county executive says he's focused on answers rather than addresses.
So finding out what a solution is, I think certainly involves also parenting and making sure that parents are aware of where their kids are, who they're with, and what they're doing.
WJZ reached out to Councilman Crandall for his thoughts on the acting mayor's comments. We have not heard back. In Dundalk, I'm Devin Bartolotta for WJZ.
Baltimore Mayor Catherine Pugh's leave of absence has now stretched to 4 weeks, and there's still no sign of when she plans to return to work. As of Friday, her spokesperson says she continues to battle pneumonia. Pugh's leave followed new revelations of a scandal involving her lucrative book deal with UMMS during her time serving on the board. Acting Mayor Jack Young spoke to WYPR today about the questions surrounding her timeline for Pugh's return.
Well, I haven't spoke to her in almost, I think, 2.5 weeks. Haven't heard from her.
Do you know anything about the condition of her health? I mean, is she recovering from pneumonia? Do you know anything about that?
I have no idea other than what I read in the paper.
City council members and delegates have called for Pugh's resignation. Acting Mayor Young has not said whether he thinks Mayor Pugh should step aside.
After months of speculation, Governor Hogan says he's seriously considering a run against President Trump in 2020. Rick Ritter reports Hogan's remarks came at a Politics and Eggs event in New Hampshire.
On the big stage in New Hampshire, what's considered a must-stop for presidential hopefuls. Governor Larry Hogan's comments stole the show.
A lot of people have been approaching me probably since around the time of my inauguration in late January. People have asked me to give this serious consideration, and I think I owe it to those people to do just that.
Hogan talking about a primary challenge to President Trump in 2020.
But I'm not here to make any official announcements today. I just thought that April would be a beautiful time to visit New Hampshire.
Off the stage, the Maryland governor was quickly asked for his thoughts regarding the Mueller report and criticized fellow Republicans for not speaking out, saying, quote, they're afraid of being tweeted about.
It certainly did not completely exonerate the president, as he said. There was some very disturbing stuff that we found in the report, and just because aides did not follow his orders, that's the only reason we don't have obstruction of justice.
Adding the report won't impact his decision on whether to run.
It's really about seeing what people think out there and whether there's any path to victory and whether or not they're really interested in having an alternative.
Hogan says he's already visited 10 states with 16 more to go, but won't let ego get in the way of common sense.
I've said before, I'm not going to launch some kind of a suicide mission. I have a real day job that's important to me for the people of Maryland. Unless I thought there was a path to victory.
Hogan was also asked about Baltimore City, with this week being the 4-year anniversary of the unrest following the death of Freddie Gray. He talked about long-term efforts and says what Baltimore is dealing with is not just a policing issue. Back to you.
New speed and red light cameras are installed along several Baltimore roadways. City officials say 6 new speed cameras have been activated today around school zones. They operate Monday through Friday from 6 a.m. until 8 p.m. all year long. The fine is $40. 5 new red light cameras were also turned on today, including one at Falls Road and Cold Spring Lane. The cameras are operational 24 hours a day, every day of the year, and the fine for running a red light is $75.
Well, growing the perfect apple for the climate in our state, that was the goal for our University of Maryland professor.
And after nearly 3 decades, he believes he has finally done it. Professor Christopher Walsh has been testing varieties of apple trees that will tolerate the conditions growers face right here in the Mid-Atlantic.
After years of pollinating and cross-pollinating, Walsh created a new apple he's calling the Antietam Blush. He describes it as not too sweet, not too tart, and has a nice crunch.
And nurseries are now growing the Antietam Blush. The goal is to plant them in orchards next year.
It's not too sweet, not too tart. That sounds a lot like our meteorologist tonight.
I was going to say, or a fine wine.
That's right.
There you go. Well, coming up, new accusations against the Boy Scouts of America. Thousands of leaders accused of sex abuse.
When was the last time you seen him?
Last night, probably 9:30, when he went to bed.
911 call released an update on the search for a missing 5-year-old boy in Illinois.
And we won't be in the 80s tomorrow, but another warm and sunny day. We'll talk about when storms move in coming up.